Whispers inside the palace have erupted into full-blown alarm. Camilla, Queen Consort, is now at the center of explosive allegations involving Prince George, Princess Charlotte, and Prince Louis. What began as anonymous online claims has forced Prince William into action, calling an emergency meeting behind closed doors. With tensions rising, insiders are breaking rank, staffers are divided, and a royal line is being tested. What exactly happened? And why did it shake the future king into immediate response? Shock. Claim: Camilla targets the royal children. It began with a whisper, then a hashtag. In early January 2026, royal forums and fan accounts started circulating a claim so unexpected it shook even longtime royal watchers. Camilla, Queen Consort, had allegedly made unsettling remarks about Prince George and was exhibiting what some described as targeted behavior toward Princess Charlotte and Prince Louis. The original allegation surfaced on YouTube, buried in the comments section of a royal analysis video. A user claiming to be a former staffer at Kensington Palace hinted at unusual tension following a private family engagement over the holidays. The term "targeted" was repeated in follow-up clips and dissected in detail by fan channels. Within 48 hours, it had migrated to TikTok, Reddit, and even select Facebook groups where royal speculation thrives. "She's always been seen as distant but stable," one user posted. "But if this is true, it changes everything." Palace insiders immediately felt the heat. While official channels gave no comment, two sources close to Clarence House described the mood as quietly panicked. The idea that Camilla, known for her controlled presence and avoidance of emotional missteps, might be at the center of a child-related controversy felt unthinkable. But in the age of digital monarchy, perception can spread faster than truth. And soon, of seasoned royal reporters began asking questions. The first rumored incident. What was reported? The story that took hold was this. During a private moment after a holiday lunch at Sandringham, Camilla allegedly made a comment regarding Prince George's future role as king. The phrase, quoted anonymously, was said to have undermined his position or suggested a more traditional adult should be considered. No recording, no names, just a quote, repeated enough times to feel real. By January 3rd, royal gossip channels lit up. The story was amplified with new layers, that the Queen Consort was pushing for more involvement from her own grandchildren, or had expressed concern over the media training George and Charlotte were receiving. Palace aides scrambled. Two unnamed staffers gave opposing accounts to the Daily Mirror. One dismissed it as online nonsense. The other admitted, "We've had a few things come up that made some of us stop and think." The damage wasn't in the proof. It was in the implication. To even suggest that Camilla, of all people, might be interfering in the Windsor line of succession sparked fears of internal rift. Behind the scenes, officials worried not just about public reaction, but about William's. William's rising alarm. Why he called an emergency meeting. Those close to Prince William say he doesn't act rashly. But by the first weekend of January, his demeanor had reportedly shifted. Aides noticed him canceling a scheduled briefing, rescheduling appearances, and spending more time at home. According to a former royal aide, the Prince of Wales wasn't angry. He was controlled, but there was something in his tone we hadn't heard in years. It was then that an emergency meeting was quietly summoned at Clarence House. Though the palace never confirmed it, 3 independent sources said senior courtiers, legal advisors, and 2 members of Catherine's inner team were called in. The mood one insider said, was urgent but careful. William's concern wasn't just about the rumors, it was about the pattern. Small inconsistencies in reporting, aides unsure about what they'd seen, comments misinterpreted or misunderstood. But when it comes to his children, William leaves nothing to chance. He's protective to the core, a staffer revealed. When something touches George, he acts. For a future king, this wasn't just family business. It was a line in the sand. The meeting begins. Royals gather behind closed doors. The meeting, which took place on January 6th, was described by insiders as unusually serious in tone. Gathered were key figures, senior household aides, members of the Royal Communications Office, and a handful of Kate's most trusted advisors. Their objective? To sift through what was gossip and what might be quietly real. It wasn't about blame, one source clarified. It was about preservation, family unity, public perception, and above all, protecting the heirs. Those in the room confirmed that William led the discussion, calm but clearly unsettled. He asked for a complete audit of recent private engagements where Camilla had spent time with the children. He requested clarification on who had access to George's education briefings and whether there had been any change in language around his role.
"It was the most focused I've ever seen him," an attendee said.
The fact that such a meeting took place at all is rare. But the real shock came when even staff loyal to Camilla didn't push back. They, too, wanted answers. Sources inside speak what insiders allegedly said. Once word of the meeting leaked, as it inevitably does in palace circles, the narrative took another turn. Insiders began to speak. One longtime staffer said bluntly, "This isn't just idle chatter anymore." Another claimed to have noticed a shift in warmth during recent interactions between Camilla and the Wales children. Not unkind, they said, just distant, formal, different. Others were quick to defend the Queen Consort. A royal footman who had worked during the Sandringham holidays insisted there was no tension at all and that Camilla treats those children with nothing but grace. He added that moments of formality are not unusual within royal households, especially with young heirs expected to carry so much public weight. But by then, it was too late for consensus. The damage had been done, not necessarily by what was proven, but by what had been suggested. A divide had formed, one between those who believed the allegations were digital age drama, fueled by the echo chambers of social media, and those who felt something subtle but meaningful was happening quietly behind the palace walls. "There's no smoking gun," admitted one senior aide, "but the atmosphere has changed. And in this palace, that's always the first sign." Another insider hinted that Kate's demeanor had become more reserved in recent briefings, choosing her words carefully, perhaps in reaction to what had been circulating. One mid-level aide offered a chilling prediction. This could be the start of something bigger. Not a scandal, maybe, but a shift. A cooling. Something we'll all feel soon enough. Even staff who dismissed the rumors as overblown admitted that the very fact the question had been raised publicly was a turning point. In the monarchy, perception often becomes reality. And if the public began to perceive Camilla as distant or unsupportive toward the heirs, it would recast her entire role within the family narrative. Whether the allegations were grounded in fact or born from misinterpreted moments, the possibility alone was enough to ignite a quiet storm in Windsor. And for William, ever the heir, but now very much the father, that was reason enough to act. Because when the institution falters, the crown adapts. But when the children are questioned, the line is drawn. The alleged evidence, invoices, and movements. As the palace tried to contain growing speculation, a new layer of intrigue surfaced, this time tied to internal scheduling records and financial entries. According to two insiders familiar with royal logistics, several aides discovered what they described as inconsistencies in Camilla's private movements, particularly in relation to unscheduled interactions involving the Wales children. A source with knowledge of the internal review said there were irregularities in calendar overlaps and guest lists following the holidays at Sandringham and Highgrove. These weren't violations of protocol, but the frequency and informality of certain meetings reportedly raised quiet flags among staff. Then came the whispers of financial entries, allegedly unusual invoices tied to Camilla's team, including outside consultants and wellness professionals, booked for events where the children had been present. Though nothing illegal or inappropriate was confirmed, the lack of transparency rattled the household's more cautious advisors. It wasn't the entries themselves, said one aide. It was what they suggested, access and influence that hadn't been pre-cleared. Further rumors suggested that Camilla's children, Tom Parker Bowles and Laura Lopes, were present at several informal gatherings and were observed speaking too freely about George's schooling and Charlotte's personality in a tone that struck some staff as overfamiliar. Tensions escalated when it was reported that William ordered increased security reviews around his children's movement, particularly their comings and goings between Adelaide Cottage and public outings. One insider close to the royal protection detail revealed that additional clearances were temporarily implemented for visitors, even family. At that point, it became more than rumor. It became a review. William, deeply protective and aware of the public's sensitivity to his children's future, was said to have demanded a full account, not just from aides, but from anyone within Camilla's circle who had interacted with the children since Christmas 2025. What started as digital whispers had now triggered an internal audit. Palace strategy: how William responded publicly. As rumors escalated into full-blown headlines and social media spiraled with speculation, Prince William knew that any misstep could fan the flames. The pressure behind the gates of Adelaide Cottage was immense, but from the outside, there was only calm. Despite the internal unease, William and Catherine maintained a composed and deliberate image that royal aides later described as textbook precision. Their first major appearance after the story went viral was on January 9th, a scheduled visit to a children's hospice in Manchester, accompanied by well-circulated photographs of the couple comforting young patients and speaking gently with staff. The symbolism was impossible to ignore. The future king and queen, championing vulnerable children, just days after rumors had suggested discord around their own. Their expressions were warm, yet focused. Smiles were soft, but unforced. There was no sense of panic, only poise. And notably, no public comment was made about the controversy swirling around Camilla. It was deliberate, confirmed a former royal press secretary. Standard protocol in moments like this is to remain silent. You don't feed the fire. You let the duty drown it. Behind the scenes, however, palace strategy went into overdrive. The Royal Communications Office was reportedly instructed to prepare enhanced media lines for William and Kate's engagements. Any journalist inquiry mentioning the Queen Consort or alleged tension was met with a single official reply: "No comment on private family matters." But it was the digital messaging that shifted most noticeably. Over the next 72 hours, Kensington Palace's social media accounts ramped up coverage of Kate's early childhood initiatives, William's Earthshot projects, and ongoing collaborations with veterans and mental health charities. Each post was carefully curated. Images of nurturing, leadership, and unity. Internally, the strategy was called Visibility Through Values. The goal? Remind the public who William and Catherine are, and what they represent.
People needed something to believe in, said one palace aide. And nothing silenced noise faster than showing up and doing the work.
Still, the internal mood was far from relaxed. On the morning of January 10th, a rare verbal directive was delivered across departments. No further leaks. Staff were reminded that the children's privacy came above all, and that any further speculation could damage the long-term image of the monarchy.
There was no shouting, said a senior advisor, but the tone was clear. This wasn't just a press issue, it was a line of legacy.
William's response was subtle but powerful. Over the next week, his schedule intensified, not diminished. He attended a business summit, opened a new children's ward in Birmingham, and hosted 2 quiet roundtable discussions at Kensington Palace. Each engagement was photographed, logged, and shared. The message was unmistakable. He wasn't hiding. He wasn't faltering. He was leading. And in doing so, William signaled something deeper than damage control. He signaled stability, a steady hand in a storm the public was never meant to see. Camilla's position. Denial and defense. As the story spiraled across tabloids and timelines, Camilla's household found itself in unfamiliar territory, on the defensive. Normally protected by years of carefully curated discretion and insulated from reactive press cycles, the Queen Consort's team was suddenly thrust into damage control. Sources say the initial reaction within Clarence House was shock, followed by silence. But as the rumors intensified and began to shape global headlines, Camilla's circle quietly shifted into response mode. By January 11th, multiple reputable outlets reported that her camp had branded the claims as unfounded, hurtful, and deliberately inflammatory. A trusted palace aide told one royal correspondent, "This is gossip with no grounding. It doesn't reflect Camilla's relationship with the children or her place in this family." That message was carefully constructed, not too aggressive, but firm. The goal was clear: to assert innocence without igniting further headlines. A source close to the Queen Consort elaborated, stressing that Camilla had never commented on Prince George's future, nor had she ever sought to redirect the children's roles or image. "She has always taken care to stay in her lane," the insider explained. "If anything, she's gone out of her way to support Catherine's parenting decisions and never overstep."
Perhaps most telling was the emotional defense that followed. "People are forgetting she's part of this family too," said one long-standing aide.
"She's been in these children's lives since they were born. There is nothing calculating or cold about her relationship with them." While Camilla herself remained publicly silent, her next scheduled engagement carried symbolic weight. On January 12th, she attended a children's literacy event in Hampshire, smiling warmly, kneeling beside students, and reading aloud with practiced charm. To many, it was routine. To insiders, it was intentional symbolism. She knew eyes would be on her, a senior palace staffer remarked. That event wasn't just about books. It was about reinforcing the maternal image, steady, engaged, and unbothered by the noise. Yet behind the smiles, palace insiders confirmed that Camilla was deeply unsettled. One member of her private team said, "She's not naive. She knows how quickly the narrative can turn. She lived it once in the 90s. But this is different, because it involves the children." "What hurts the most," the source added quietly, "is the idea that anyone would believe she's capable of undermining them." In a rare move, A briefing note, later leaked, was reportedly circulated between the communications teams of both the Prince and Princess of Wales and Clarence House. The language focused on preserving internal trust, mutual respect, and avoiding any public perception of division. It was a message of unity, but the very fact that such coordination was necessary spoke volumes. Even in silence, the palace was preparing for fallout. And Camilla, once carefully shielded, now stood in a spotlight that had turned unexpectedly cold. Media reaction: public versus palace narrative. As the palace moved to tighten internal communications and Project Unity, the outside world did precisely the opposite. Media coverage exploded, and within hours, the rumblings inside royal walls became a global spectacle. Online, it wasn't just chatter. It was a narrative war. YouTube channels specializing in royal commentary dropped back-to-back videos with click-heavy titles. TikTok users created side-by-side comparison clips of Camilla's past and present interactions with the children. Old footage was dug up. Eyebrow raises, missed handholds, even seating arrangements from past engagements were turned into supposed proof. The hashtag #ProtectTheHeirs trended for 48 hours, climbing to the #2 spot in the UK and reaching top 10 globally. Thousands of users posted statements of support for George, Charlotte, and Louis, painting them as symbols of a more modern, relatable royal future, and implying they needed shielding from palace politics. One post read, "Kate raised them with love. William defends them with honor. That's the future, not the past." In this emotionally charged digital climate, perception overtook fact. US-based royal commentators, particularly those who had followed the Sussex saga, leaned into a growing theory that this story wasn't just about an offhand remark. It was the visible tip of a deeper generational power struggle between William's forward-facing household and Camilla's entrenched position alongside Charles. "People forget," said a tabloid editor on a late-night panel, "Camilla survived decades of public scorn. She knows how to play the long game. But now it's William's court rising, and he's drawing a boundary." British tabloids, meanwhile, took a more divided stance. Some publications defended Camilla's legacy, her charity work, her discretion, and her loyalty to King Charles, highlighting that no formal evidence of wrongdoing had been presented. A front-page op-ed in the Daily Telegraph argued, "We risk turning rumor into revolution. The Queen Consort has earned her place. She's not a threat. She's family." But others weren't so diplomatic. The Daily Mail ran with a bold headline, "Whispers at the nursery door. Has Camilla overstepped?" Even BBC Radio 4, known for its typically reserved tone, aired a special discussion titled, "How much influence should a Queen Consort have over the heirs?" It featured historians, former palace staffers, and child development experts dissecting the power dynamics of royal households. The tone was measured, but the underlying message was clear. The idea had taken root. And once an idea takes root, especially in royal storytelling, it's nearly impossible to erase. In the span of 5 days, Camilla's decades-long narrative as the quiet, dutiful consort was reopened, re-examined, and recontested. Every sympathetic column was countered by a skeptical thread. Every defense met with a deeper dig. As one royal analyst put it plainly, "This stopped being about one comment. It's about what people want the future of the monarchy to look like, and who they believe should have a voice in shaping it." The divide was no longer private. It was generational, global, and growing by the hour. What this means for the future. Whether the story fades or festers, one thing is now certain. A line has been crossed. The public has seen a glimpse of something few ever expected: a perceived fracture between the Queen Consort and the next generation of monarchs. Prince William, ever the symbol of balance and restraint, took swift, quiet action. And in doing so, he reasserted his role not just as heir, but as father first. Internally, the palace is expected to restructure communication access around the children, limiting who is briefed on their whereabouts, development, and ceremonial involvement. What was once casual is now closely monitored. The story also changes Camilla's position going forward. Whether the allegations were real, twisted, or false, the perception now lingers. Every future interaction will be watched more closely. Every shared glance between her and the children photographed, paused, and replayed. But perhaps most significantly, the events of January 2026 have cemented a new reality in royal strategy. In this age, perception is power, and the children, especially George, are no longer shielded figures. They are part of the public narrative. And from this point on, every player around them will be held to that higher standard. The royal family thrives on control, on discretion, on the unspoken rules that protect the crown from chaos. But this moment proved different. The suggestion, real or rumored, that Camilla may have overstepped around the heirs jolted the very heart of the palace. William's swift action was not just a show of authority, but a public line drawn in quiet defiance. For now, the children remain protected, and the family appears united. But the aftershocks are undeniable. Perceptions have shifted. Trust has thinned. Camilla's role, once seen as solidified by loyalty and time, is now under microscopic scrutiny. Whether the storm passes or leaves a lasting scar, the monarchy has entered a new, more fragile chapter, where even the whisper of overreach is enough to summon crisis. In this House of Windsor, nothing is private for long, and this time, the children were at the center of it all.